Hello everyone. It is time for me to finish the easy explanation of the short story B.Wordsworth written by V.S.Naipaul. Do check the description box for the easy explanation video number 1 of this story. We will start from page number 119 today. A little bit of revision. She bet me rather badly and I ran out of the house swearing that I would never come back. Who is she? By now we all know that she is the mother of the narrator. And what kind of relationship do the narrator and his mother share? Well, the kind of relationship which they share is a troubled one. I went to B.Wordsworth's house. Getting thrashed by his mother, he immediately runs away to B.Wordsworth's house. Again, check the description box for the symbolic significance of B.Wordsworth's house. I was so angry, my nose was bleeding. The mother was harsh, rather insensitive, and very strict. B.Wordsworth said, "Stop crying and we will go for a walk." B.Wordsworth provides the boy narrator with the healing touch. He comforts him. He offers him solace. I stopped crying, but I was breathing short. We went for a walk. We walked down St. Clair Avenue to the Savannah and we walked to the race course. They walked and spent quality time together. B.Wordsworth said, "Now let us lie on the grass and look up at the sky." The sky and the grass are symbols of nature, of the natural world. And I want you to think how far those stars are from us. I want you to think, to imagine how far those stars are from us. He teaches him to escape into a world of imagination and fantasy in order to escape from the harsh realities of life, from the painful memories of life. Herein comes the theme of escapism in the story B.Wordsworth. And what is the impact of this on the young mind? The impact is immense. I did as he told me, and I saw what he meant. The boy understands what B.Wordsworth is trying to teach him. I felt like nothing in comparison to the vast nature, and at the same time I had never felt so big and great in all my life. It broadens his mental frame, the scope of his mind, the scope of his thought process. It elevates him into a kind of higher consciousness where he is able to forget all his anger, his tears, and all the blows. He escapes into this world of fantasy to forget all about the painful memories of his life. I forgot all my anger and all my tears and all the blows, the troubled relationship that he shares with his mother. He forgets about everything. He is in a blissful state of mind, and in this way, B.Wordsworth and the boy narrator become close friends. When I said I was better, he began telling me the names of the stars, and I particularly remembered the constellation of Orion the Hunter. Though I don't really know why, I can spot Orion even today. It has left an impression in his mind, but I have forgotten the rest. Then a light was flashed in our faces and we saw a policeman. We got up from the grass. Shortly, they are interrupted by this policeman and the interrogation becomes a comic exchange. The policeman said, "What you doing here? Observe the use of language, English language." B.Wordsworth said, "I have been asking myself the same question for 40 years. He has been questioning the purpose of his life on earth for 40 years. This is humorous as well as philosophical in meaning. We became friends, B. Wordsworth and I, and after this they became friends. There is a bond, an endearing bond of love and friendship blossoming between the two, B. Wordsworth and I. B. Wordsworth, a 40 years old man, and I, the young narrator. He told me, "You must never tell anybody about me and about the mango tree and the coconut tree and the plum tree. Perhaps nobody will understand the significance of these things. Nobody, the people, the adults, will not understand what these things mean for them. You must keep that a secret. If you tell anybody, I will know because I am a poet." B. Wordsworth wants this friendship to be kept a secret, also perhaps because he belongs to the marginalized section of the society. He is a poet, and in the post-colonial society of Trinidad, poets were considered to be not so successful people. Therefore, there is a sense of alienation in the mind of B. Wordsworth. I gave him my word and I kept it. I liked his little room. It had no more furniture than George's front room, but it looked cleaner and healthier. But it also looked lonely. The theme of solitude, alienation from the society. Here, in this short story, we also come across the theme of the alienation of the artist from the society he lives in. And B. Wordsworth tries to come to terms with the role he might play in the society in the post-colonial Trinidad. One day I asked him, "Mr. Wordsworth, why you does keep all this bush in your yard? Ain't it does make the place damp?" He said, "Listen, and I will tell you a story. Once upon a time, a boy and a girl met each other and they fell in love. A love story. They loved each other so much they got married. They were both poets. He loved words, the man loved words, she loved grass and flowers and trees, and the girl loved nature. They lived happily in a single room. There was no material prosperity in their relationship. They were both poets, and as poets, they did not earn much. This is the theme of the relationship between art and material prosperity. Throughout the story, we see that poets are not materially rich. They do not have the materialistic pleasures of life. And then one day the girl poet said to the boy poet, "We are going to have another poet in the family." The girl gets pregnant and she is expecting a child, and that child is going to be a poet. But this poet was never born because a girl died, and the young poet died with her, inside her. The child remains unborn, and the girl's husband was very sad. And he said he would never touch a thing in the girl's garden, and so the garden remained and grew wild, high and wild. I looked at B. Wordsworth. The boy studies the body language of the storyteller. Here it is B. Wordsworth, his friend, and as he told me this lovely story, this tragic love story, he seemed to grow older. I understood his story, signifying the close emotional connection between the boy and the protagonist of the story. Here, although the boy is not mature, although the boy is just a young kid, he understands that this story is the story of B. Wordsworth and also a reason for his lonely existence on earth. We went for long walks together. walks are very significant. It is during these walks that they share each other's feelings and they share each other's experiences, and the boy learns a lot from B. Wordsworth. We went to the botanical gardens and the rock gardens. We climbed Chancellor Hill in the late afternoon and watched the darkness fall on Port of Spain and watched the lights go on in the city and on the ships in the harbor. These are the happy moments spent by the two of them. Despite the difference in their ages, they enjoy quality time together. He did everything as though he were doing it for the first time in his life. He did everything as though he were doing some church rite. This is what the narrator feels about his friend. B. Wordsworth always does everything as though he is doing it for the first time in his life. He is inquisitive, he is energetic, he is optimistic to learn something more, and he does everything methodically and religiously as if he is doing some church rite, church ritual. He would say to me, "Now, how about having some ice cream?" And when I said yes, he would grow very serious and say, "Now, which cafe shall we patronize, be a customer of?" As though it were a very important thing. He would think for some time about it and finally say, "I think I'll go and negotiate the purchase with that shop." The world became a most exciting place. At times, the two spent time contemplating on the deeper truths of life, and at times they spent their time talking about very ordinary everyday things like eating an ice cream or from where they are going to buy that ice cream. And in this way, the world becomes a most exciting place for the boy, for the inquisitive boy, for the little boy who is curious to learn from life. One day when I was in his yard, he said to me, "I have a great secret which I'm now going to tell you." I said, "It really secret?" He gets curious. At the moment, yes. I looked at him and he looked at me. He said, "This is just between you and me. Remember, I am writing a poem. And why is it just between you and me? Perhaps because nobody else is going to understand or empathize with the poet." Oh, I was disappointed. He said, "But this is a different sort of poem. This is the greatest poem in the world." I whistled. The boy gets curious as well as excited to hear that his friend is writing the greatest poem in the world. We do not, however, see B. Wordsworth writing any poem. He said, "I have been working on it for more than 5 years now, and it is still unfinished, and I will finish it in about 22 years from now. That is, if I keep on writing at the present rate." Perhaps he is experiencing writer's block at this phase of his life. "You does write a lot then?" He said, "Not anymore. I just write 1 line a month, but I'm sure it is a good line." I asked, "What was last month's good line?" He looked up at the sky and said, "The past is deep." This is again a hint that the tragic love story is the story of B. Wordsworth's own life. Indeed, the past is deep and the past is full of separation, disappointment and frustration. He speaks about the painful past and he thinks about his future where he is going to write a poem that will sing to all humanity. This is his dream, and his dream is still unfinished, unfulfilled. I said, "It's a beautiful line." He appreciates the depth of this beautiful line. It is philosophical and it has great inner meaning. The past is deep. Perhaps the boy does not understand the true meaning of it, but he appreciates the writing of his friend. B. Wordsworth said, I hope to distill the experiences of a whole month into that single line of poetry, so in 22 years I shall have written a poem that will sing to all humanity. Just like his brother William Wordsworth, B. Wordsworth too wants to be a renowned poet someday in future. I was filled with wonder. Our walks continued. We walked along the sea wall at Dockside one day and I said, Mr. Wordsworth, if I drop this pin in the water, you think it will float? He said, this is a strange world. Drop your pin and let us see what will happen. He entertains this idea. He does not discourage the boy, but he encourages him to find out on his own what will happen. This is what he teaches the boy, to question, to find out on his way by observing things, by observing the ordinary things of life. The pin sank. I said, how is the poem this month? But he never told me any other line. He merely said, oh, it comes, you know, it comes. Or we would sit on the sea wall and watch the liners come into the harbour. But of the greatest poem in the world, I heard no more. I felt he was growing older. How you does live, Mr. Wordsworth? I asked him one day. He said, you mean how I get money? When I nodded, he laughed in a crooked way. He said, I sing calypsos in the calypso season, and that lasts you the rest of the year. It is enough. But you will be the richest man in the world when you write the greatest poem. He didn't reply. This silence on his part speaks volume about the chasm that exists between poetry and material prosperity. Can poets be rich? Well, this is the question we need to ponder. One day, when I went to see him in his little house, I found him lying on his little bed. He looked so old and so weak that I found myself wanting to cry. He said, the poem is not going well. He realizes that his end is near, that he is going to die. He wasn't looking at me, he was looking through the window at the coconut tree and he was speaking as though I wasn't there. He said, when I was 20, I felt the power within myself. Then almost in front of my eyes, I could see his face growing older and more tired. He said, but that was a long time ago. And then I felt it so keenly as it was as though I had been slapped by my mother. He is again reminded of his strict mother. His mother is harsh and rather insensitive towards him. In fact, he is beaten by his mother so badly. At times, he is physically abused by her. And this reality hits him so hard as if he is slapped by his mother. I could see it clearly on his face. What can he see? The inevitability of death. It was there for everyone to see, death on the shrinking face. He looked at me and saw my tears and sat up. He said, come. I went and sat on his knees. He looked into my eyes and he said, oh, you can see it too. I always knew you had the poet's eye. Oh, you can see it too. You can see the inevitability of death. You have developed the power of seeing the inner significance of things. And I always knew you had the poet's eye. You have the sensibility, the sensitivity of a poet. He didn't even look sad, and that made me burst out crying loudly. He pulled me to his thin chest. He draws the boy closer to him. This is perhaps the last time that he will be so close to his dear friend B. Wordsworth. Such an emotional moment and said, "Do you want me to tell you a funny story?" So another story, and this time it is not going to be a tragic story, but it is going to be a funny story. And he smiled encouragingly at me, but I couldn't reply. The boy is so emotionally disturbed that he is unable to reply. What is this funny story? The readers are interested as well, and this is the art of the storyteller V.S.Naipaul. He tells the story of this strange man with such ease and simplicity that he at all times keeps the readers engaged. Let's see what the funny story is. He said, "When I have finished this story, I want you to promise that you will go away and never come back to see me. Do you promise?" And we know that this boy narrator keeps his promises. He has kept their friendship a secret, and he will go away and he will never come back to see B. Wordsworth. I nodded. He said, "Good, well listen. The story I told you about the boy poet and the girl poet, do you remember that? That wasn't true. That was not true. That was a lie, an illusion. It was something I just made up, cooked up. All this talk about poetry and the greatest poem in the world, that wasn't true either. Isn't that the funniest thing you have heard?" But his voice broke. He dies. What is the significance of this confession? He confesses that everything that he has ever said to the boy is a lie. Perhaps he is disillusioned and he has understood that all his dreams are now broken dreams. Therefore, he shatters this idyllic world, this imaginary world of dreams, so that the boy can confront reality. This is one part of the explanation. Another plausible explanation seems to be the fact that this confession is perhaps an attempt to erase his own existence from the mind of the young boy so that he doesn't miss him after his death. B. Wordsworth is a sensitive man, and he knows that his death will create an emotional vacuum in the life of his little friend. Therefore, he tries to console him in this way by telling him that everything said to him is a lie and an illusion. There are two plausible explanations. Well, it is up to you to choose which one you will believe in. But his voice broke. I left the house and ran home crying. He runs home crying. Which home? This home is not the one-roomed little hut where he used to find an escape from his abusive mother, from the scolding and beating of his mother, from the harsh realities of life. This home is his own home where his mother is waiting for him. There is no B. Wordsworth in his life anymore to heal him, to comfort him. What will he do? He runs home crying like a poet. He is now like a poet, crying for everything I saw. And who has taught him to see everything, to observe everything, to derive learning and knowledge from ordinary, simple things of life? It is his friend B. Wordsworth. Unfortunately, B. Wordsworth is no more with him. I walked along Alberto Street a year later, but I could find no sign of the poet's house. It hadn't vanished just like that. It had been pulled down, and a big two-storied building had taken its place. The mango tree, the plum tree, the coconut tree had all been cut down, and there was brick and concrete everywhere. The house and the yard, the garden, the mango tree, the plum tree, the coconut tree, all these things had such a special place in the lives of the two friends. The little boy's friend is no more, the house is no more, and it was just as though B. Wordsworth had never existed. B. Wordsworth, the failed poet, had never existed. He is not famous like William Wordsworth, and after his death, nobody will ever remember him. But the natural world is replaced by brick and concrete everywhere. This last line sums up the sad story of the life of B. Wordsworth. This strange story about a strange person may appear humorous at first, but at its core lies a tragedy of tremendous magnitude. What is striking though, and what makes us hopeful, is the fact that B. Wordsworth, although lonely, although alienated from society, strikes such a beautiful friendship with a little boy. This friendship and the character of B. Wordsworth make this story so appealing, so touching, and so moving.